on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
Just because a marketing technique that you're using today does not work, does not mean it's not going to work tomorrow or next week or next month. Do not give up. Be very thoughtful in your process. But the first thing you got to do is write the book.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers. No more barriers. No one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson.
We are in romance mood today. We're talking romance with a prolific, cheeky wench romance author coming up soon. Are you a romantic man, Mark?
Well, I buy flowers for my wife every month, religiously on our anniversary, first day that we met. So yes, I think you could say I am quite romantic. And then occasionally I'll buy other things as well, just because. The lady loves milk tray.
You celebrate the anniversary of the time you met your wife every month?
Yes, that's right, I do.
Wow.
Because I'm grateful, James. Do you do that with Mrs. Blatch?
I'd like to say I do.
You have been married longer than me.
I have. I buy a lot of flowers. I do buy flowers occasionally, but not. I mean, that sounds to me like it's just a calendar entry. It's not romantic.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'll ask Mrs. Blatch what she thinks, if that's romantic or not. I'm pretty sure I'm going to win.
I'd really prefer it if you didn't raise it when you see her. Good. Okay. Well, look, we're talking Suzan Tisdale in just a moment in a good interview about romance, about escapism and how important it is and the secret ingredients to those bestsellers that she has had. Before we do that, I want to welcome some Patreon supporters. Mark Wilhelm. I feel like I want to say Wilhelm, as in Kaiser, but Mark Wilhelm, Rhonda Lane, Lisa Cassidy, and Justin Richel. Thank you all so much. They all went to patreon.com, I should say, / self-publishing show to pledge for each episode. And there's a very good reason for going there. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say, it's normally Australians you insult with your accent. You're adding Germans now. So It's Australians and Germans, which also would be a nice, neat segue into something else where we can get there in a minute.
Yeah, we will in a moment. But Mark could be from Germany. We don't have his geolocation here.
He could be, but I don't think it would be. It's probably not perhaps as kosher as it could be to compare him to Kaiser Wilhelm.
No,
I don't think there's any kind of. I'm not entirely sure that's
no
thing to do.
Well, he's not the worst German.
Well, no, he's not the worst German. He could be. I mean, well, he is supporting us on Patreon, so I'm fairly sure. Oh, I see that German.
Kaiser Wilhelm is not the worst German in terms of.
No, absolutely not. No, I've never been a fan of Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. He's awful.
Or Helmut Kohl.
Indeed. Do you know what Kohl means in German?
No, what does it mean?
Cabbage.
Oh, Helmut Cabbage.
I'm pretty sure it's Helmut Cabbage. Yeah.
Schwarzkopf is also a good name in German, isn't it? The blackhead, the old blackhead. Okay, look, there's a reason I'm pausing for a moment on the Patreon supporters, because one of the bonuses of being a Patreon supporter, which you can do for as little as $1 an episode, is that you get enrolled in the SPF University. Which, Mark?
Just checking. It does. It means cabbage.
Okay.
Yes.
The SPF University, which is
it's not a university.
Not
Absolutely.
a real university.
For those with a legal bent, it's not a university. But you can learn lots of good things there, including this week. You can learn all about Scrivener, which is certainly the software that I use and pretty much everyone else I know uses to write. And it's a complicated piece of software, and I probably don't use more than about 5% of what it can do. In fact, I'm almost sure I don't, because I don't even use it to format. But we have Gwen Hernandez, who wrote Scrivener for Dummies, is coming to the university to do a webinar on, what day is the webinar, James?
It is on Wednesday, the 15th. So that's this Wednesday, next Wednesday, the 15th of May at 2100 hours in the UK, and 9 p.m. in the evening in the UK, which makes it sort of in the afternoon in Los Angeles and tea time-ish in New York. But you'll get all the actual times when you enroll.
Did your camera just switch off?
It did, but we're now on to my other camera, my backup camera.
Right.
Well, this is a technically fraught evening, isn't it? And you're really busy and angry with me for having...
No, I'm not angry. I'm busy, but I'm not angry.
Yes, my lovely, beautiful new lens camera has decided to die, but we are now on my screen camera, which it shows a bit more of the pink boudoir atmosphere I've got going on here.
Yes, for listeners on the podcast, James has turned his shed into what can only be described as a tart's boudoir, basically. And I have to say, if people are looking in James's garden and were looking through the window, they could be mistaken for thinking they were in Amsterdam. And coming into James's shed, they could get surprised. I don't know whether James is wearing trousers, for example. So, no, stop.
And I've got big windows at the front where I could just sort of strut up and down.
No, that's an image that no one wants.
I like that move. Good. Look, let's concentrate on this webinar. So we have a webinar for members, students of the Self-Publishing Formula at University, SPFU, on Wednesday, the 15th of May, all about Scrivener from the expert, as you say, Gwen Hernandez. And I've spoken to Gwen this week, and it's going to be brilliant. She's already working up exactly what's going to be in there. And I'm absolutely 100% target audience for this, because I'm typically a writer who goes into Scrivener, writes, knows that there's loads of stuff under the bonnet I just don't know about that would be useful. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm a target audience too. Absolutely.
Good. And so, you go to patreon.com/self-publishing show, become a supporter of this podcast, and you are immediately enrolled into the university, and you are eligible to attend that webinar on Wednesday. You'll get an email. Good. Okay, look, that's the webinar. We've done the Patreon supporters. You gave a speech last night, your old school.
I did, yes. I've had a busy couple of days, so I went down to Lowestoft yesterday on the train and got in, immediately went to the theatre, and then gave a speech to, I think Americans might call it enrollment or something like that. No,
Commencement.
Commencement, that's right, yeah. So I did the kind of commencement speech for these kids who are leaving, 15 or 16-year-olds leaving school or going on to do A-levels, whatever. And normally I'm not nervous with public speaking these days. I usually quite enjoy it, and I enjoy the bigger crowds rather than the smaller ones more. But I decided yesterday that I was just going to wing it. I was going to be very natural and just kind of go on and talk for 10 minutes about what I do and all that kind of stuff. And as I was sitting down seeing the other people give their speeches, I realized that I am 30 years older than these kids, and none of my usual incredibly witty patter will mean anything to them whatsoever, because we don't have anything in common apart from the fact that we went to this school. The internet wasn't a thing when I was at school. I spent the next half an hour frantically scribbling down some notes as to the things I think I ought to cover in the speech. And then I proceeded to get up onto the stage and stare into these very bright lights. So I couldn't see anything beyond them, really, apart from the fact that I knew there were 600 people waiting for me to make a complete arse of myself. But I think I managed to make only a partial arse of myself. So it was, and I've had some nice emails today from teachers thanking me for going along. So not a complete disaster. Then jumped on the train today, headed back to Salisbury. I've been writing furiously ever since to try and finish a book, and was hopefully going to finish it tonight. Probably aren't going to finish it tonight now because of, I don't know, technical reasons, which we don't need to go into.
No.
Second time we've recorded this podcast.
Well, I've done a commencement speech where you should have come to me, because I could have warned you in advance. It's quite a serious, big deal at schools, and I did exactly the same as you. In fact, I was covering a very high-profile, famous double murder case, which was going on and on and on, and was the only story everyone was talking about at the time.
I know that one.
And it got solved on the day that I was going there. It was a huge, busy day.
Oh, my goodness.
But I told the editor, I had to go. This murder case, by the way, is complicated by the fact that I spoke to the murderer several times in the process. And
did you?
Oh, yeah, and got called to the Old Bailey. Yeah, I gave evidence.
It's not IH, is it?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So he was the caretaker. So if you go through the transcript of the Old Bailey court case, you'll find my evidence.
Oh, my goodness.
So very closely linked with this. Maybe it's a story for another day. And I turned up there, which was quite glamorous in its own right. That bit worked, but suddenly everyone's in rows. It's very formal. Everyone's wearing their gowns. It's a state school that I went to. It was their like big posh day, And I didn't feel that I still did the sort of thing you did, but I didn't feel my speech really did justice to the occasion. And in the years that's followed, I've thought of a really good speech that I could have given, which was based on the process of making a film, whether it's a short film for news or a feature film. You have a kind of pre-production, a production stage, a post-production stage. And I was thinking about framing someone's life, or thinking about the kind of pre-production where you decide what themes are going to be there, what ideas there are, the production when you try to bring things together and you have to change direction. And the great end, the denouement was that who's the audience? Well, the audience is you sitting there in the cinema looking back at your life. But now you're in the stage to make those changes, to make those things happen. So what film do you want to watch at the end of your life? Isn't that a good idea for a speech, which I never gave?
It's an interesting idea, yes. It's all in the execution. Story
of my life is to think of it just after the moment. So if any other schools are listening and they want a commencement day speaker, good. Look, let's crack on with this. So it's a really good interview with Suzan Tisdale. I call her the cheeky wench because that's how she describes herself. She writes romance books with a witty, some are historical, some are contemporary, I think, and she has a wit running through them. She talks about escapism. It's a useful interview for all of us, I think, across all genres. Let's hear from Suzan.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Good morning to you, Suzan.
Good morning to you, James.
Tisdale. Is that how you say it?
Tisdale. Yeah, Suzan Tisdale. It's Suzan has a Z in it. Usually people try to pronounce it Suzanne, but it is Suzan.
Yeah, I saw that in your notes. And Tisdale is the most gloriously Northern English name. So it's
I know. I get it from my husband.
You do. It's an English background because there was a black and white era comedian called Norman Wisdom who was very sort of working class, cleaning windows type guy, and his boss was Mr. Tisdale. Mr. Tisdale.
I love it. Which, I'll have to tell Kevin that.
Everyone in England of a certain age will think of that. But far from the unglamorous world of cleaning windows in Northern England, you are the glamorous romance author. So tell us a bit about who Suzan Tisdale is.
Oh, wow. My tagline is author, storyteller, cheeky wench. I tend to have a very strong sense of humor. And so that's where the cheeky wench came from. When I was trying to come up with a cute tagline, I had author and storyteller, but I couldn't think of anything else. And one of my friends said cheeky wench. And I'm like, that just fits. So it's kind of stuck since then, and it's on logos and everything. So.
Okay. And tell us about your writing background. When did you start and what have you done?
Okay. I've always written since I was a little girl. I was horribly, painfully shy and introverted as a child. I just really was. I didn't have very many friends because I was so shy. So in other things going on in my life. So I would just escape into my own mind. And there I was not shy. I wasn't introverted and I had lots of friends. And I just have always had this very creative imagination. So I've always written, I think the first story I ever wrote, I was probably 7 or 8 years old. So anyway, got married, was married for 19 years and that kind of went south. So I've had lots of really crappy jobs and lots of really great jobs in my lifetime. But this is how I actually got started. And this really, it does upset some people and because they feel like I, didn't earn my stripes, so to speak, because I do not have one rejection letter from any traditional publishing house or anything like that. I was always under the impression, and it was true, that it was very difficult to get published. It was next to impossible. So I never once submitted to a trad house or anything. So back in 2011 or 2010, my husband gave me a Kindle for my birthday. And he had it hooked up to his credit card. Well, he didn't understand what a reader I was. So the first month he got his credit card statement, he comes to me with this deer in the headlight looks and says, "We have to talk." And he said, "Do you know you've spent almost $50 on books this month?" And I'm like, "Only?" Yeah. And so he put me on book rations. And up to that point, I had never read a romance novel in my life. Not one. Wow. Not one. I'd always read suspense, thrillers, murder mysteries, Ed McBain and James Patterson and, those types of books because that's what my mother read. and I got all her hand-me-down books. So he put me on book rations, and I went to Amazon because someone on Facebook said, they have free and 99-cent books at Amazon. I'm like, oh, okay. So this one popped up, that was 99 cents. And I thought, oh, that just looks just too silly for words. And it was a Lauren Wittig novel, and it was Scottish historical romance. And I'd never read anything like that before in my life. And I thought, well, for giggles, I'll give it a try. I was hooked from the very first paragraph. And that book, I tell Lauren all the time now, I feel like I owe her a kickback or something, because that book just changed my life. So fast forward a few months, I decided I had this book going in my mind, which eventually turned out to be Layden's Daughter. And I thought, I'm going to give my mom a Kindle for her birthday, because she was just, oh my gosh, no one could read like my mother. So anyway, I thought, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to give her a Kindle. And wouldn't it be hilarious if the first book she opens on that Kindle is something I had written? So I had it hidden. We only had one computer at the time. And I thought I had the file hidden on the family computer. And I was getting up at 3:30 every morning to write. And Kevin thought I was getting up to play Farmville.
Yeah.
So one day he comes to me, he says, "Hey, Susie, what is this?" And I'm like, oh, crap. So I came clean. I told him what I was doing. And I said, I think, and I'm not a techie person, I said, I think there's a cord that you can get that goes from the Kindle to the computer, and I could just load it into the Kindle that way and give it to Mom. Well, my husband is basically a research savant. I mean, if you want to know, does a bumblebee have nipples? I mean, Kevin is your guy. So
I do want to know that now.
They don't.
Okay.
He comes back to me a few days later, and he says, there is no cord. So in order to get it on your mom's Kindle, you have to do this thing called Kindle Direct Publishing. You have to publish it, and then you could just buy it. And I thought, oh, I could do that. No one's going to read it anyway. No one's going to know it's there. Well, so I did that. And I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I had no editor. I had no final proofer. I had nothing. I mean, nothing.
Did you have a
and
cover?
I didn't even think about a cover until I went to upload the book at Amazon, and they said, insert your cover here. And I'm like, yeah. So,
and you were like, that's a good idea. A cover.
That's a good idea. So I am a pencil portrait artist, or I was in a previous lifetime. And I had this beautiful colored pencil portrait of my daughter. So I slapped that picture onto another picture of a castle, and that was my cover. So I released that on December 9th of 2011, and by February of 2012, it was number 3 at Amazon.
Wow.
Like, my dream, my whole secret dream that I would not share with anybody is that if just 5 people I didn't know or who were not related to me bought this book, I would just be over the moon happy. So it hit like number 3 overall. And I kept thinking they've made a mistake. Amazon is going to call me and say they want their $78 back because it was a mistake. So they did call, and actually they emailed me. Chris is his name. He's no longer there. But I thought it was a friend of mine pulling a prank. And so I was rather rude in my reply. And come to find out, they were calling me to give me my own Amazon rep. So that's how it got started. And then people started messaging me and finding me on Facebook going, when's the next book out? I'm like, oh, crap, I got to write another one.
Wow.
So by October of that year,
basically uploaded it to KDP as a quick way of getting it on a Kindle to give it to your mum. And you went to number 3 in the Amazon store.
Yes. And I will tell you, my writing has improved immeasurably since that very first book. And I do have editors, and I do have final proofers, and I've got wonderful cover artists. So yeah, it changed my entire life.
Well, it can't have been that bad, Suzan, to start off with. I mean, that's amazing. And what you talked about being an introverted child. Had you done much writing one way or another before then?
Oh, yes. Back in the day before word processors, I had an old manual typewriter, and I would start a story, but I would never finish it. And so this was the first book I'd actually finished. So, but yeah, I'd always written like in high school screenplays and stories and things like that.
Wow.
So, and
this whole Scottish romance thing, which as an Englishman, obviously I'm slightly offended about that we're not romantic enough. No, I mean, who can resist a man in a kilt with a caber to toss?
That's true. But my books are really different from your typical, they're not what we call bodice rippers at all. My heroines are usually
the macho
bodice rippers.
Okay.
If you go back to like the 60s and 70s where you have, or even 80s where you had like Fabio on the cover and they've got all the end, and he, in the story, he accidentally rips her bodice, and she's basically turned on and they fall in love. I don't write books like that. I have a lot of male readers because I have a lot of battles and violence in my books.
So Highlander more? Although
pardon?
probably Highlander type rug stuff, although obviously not fantastical. It's not fantastical.
No, it's not fantastical. There's no paranormal. Well, there's not really any paranormal romance in any of my books, but they're very. I take on issues like rape. I take on issues like alcoholism, and there is always, always, always a happily ever after in all of my books except one. And I just write imperfect heroes. My heroes are never brooding. They're never. Sometimes they're. Can I say asshats?
No. Yes, of course you can.
They might.
You said bees nipples. You can say it. Ass
exactly.
Ass what?
But anyway, my heroes are perfectly imperfect, and my heroines are usually quite strong, or he allows her to, come into her own, that type of thing. And I have one series where the actual chief of the Clan McPherson clan is a female. Her name is Fiona, and that was one of the most fun books I've ever written. So I have a lot of humor in my books. It's not, they meet on page 2 and by page 3, they're, doing the nasty under the sheets. I don't write like that. So not a lot of sex scenes in my books.
Okay. So you're, that gives us an idea of the books. So when you did the first one, that was 2011, I think you said?
Yes.
So
I published it December 9th.
How many books have you written subsequently?
Oh, I've written lots. I think last count, I've got 19 individual titles that are published. And then I'm going to be releasing at least 5 this year.
And this is a commercially successful venture for you?
Oh, yes. I make a very nice 6-figure income. Yes. I've got books translated into French and German and Spanish and Italian, and I don't know what else. I have audiobooks. So yeah, it's very lucrative.
And you're definitely not the first person I've met who's had this level of success and didn't go down the trad route at all. I mean, it's still unusual, but I don't think it's going to be unusual in the future. I think more and more authors who are getting into the industry now and writing now are looking at the options and thinking, I'm doing this. And they're not even bothering with the agent route. I mean, that's not to say it's not for everyone. Absolutely.
Exactly.
But more often than not, it seems to be the case that people see the indie route as being commercially more viable.
Yes.
So how excited. Yes, congratulations, Suzan.
Thank you.
On a stellar rise. I hope your mum was impressed. Did your mum notice the book was written by you? Oh my gosh.
Okay. So what I did was, my mother, God love her, God rest her soul, she was one of the funniest women. I had printed off the manuscript of Layden's Daughter for her. And I took it to her, told her what I was doing. And I told her, now, Mom, this isn't a dirty book. It's not, steamy or anything like that. And she looked at me and she said, you mean there's no lustful thrusting? Like, oh my God, I about died. So I went back a week later. Mama, what did you think? She said, well, it was really good, Susie, but there really wasn't enough lustful thrusting.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, you're
That's not a conversation you want to have with your mum, particularly, is it?
Oh, honey, you would have had to have known my mother to appreciate it. I've got all sorts of Arlene stories that I probably can't repeat here. But she was an amazing woman. I used to think I got my writing ability from her. I did not. I got my creativity from my mom, but I got my storytelling from my dad. And I tell you what, this man, he can tell you a story that will make a grown man want to pee his pants. I mean, or just laugh until you bust a gut. So he's I didn't realize that until after my mother had passed away, just actually what a phenomenal storyteller my dad is. So I think I got it from him.
So let's talk about that then. Let's talk about your ability to tell a story that grips and gets people to turn the page. Because Suzan, that's kind of the magic juice here, isn't it? That's what everyone's looking for. We all want to write a book and you have a theme in it, but what you want is a reader who doesn't want to put it down. They want to turn the page, and you seem to have cracked that. So can you put this into words? Is this something you feel you can teach?
Oh boy. A lot of it, I think, is either insanity or divine intervention or a combination of both. It's just, for me, it's choosing the right, beautiful words. You want to put your reader into that book. When I first started out and I had this, my office was down in the basement, I had these colored note cards, and they were only colored because they were on sale. But I had all the senses. I had written, 1 sense per card and had it thumbtacked to the bulletin board. And it was like see, hear, taste, smell, time, as in time of day, time as in time of year, and time as in the timing of the story. And I would just keep that in my mind, that when I'm telling this story, I want the reader to just be able to imagine, where they are they in this glen? Well, what does this glen look like? Is it wintertime? Is it spring? Is it summer? Is it fall? Is it cold? Is it dreary? Is it dark? Is the sun shining? What color is the sky? Well, it's a blue sky. Well, blue is blue, but there's azure, or however you say it. There's periwinkle, there's violet, there's all sorts of different words that you can use for blue. Or is there a hint of lavender in the sky? That kind of thing. And then what feel like, what does the grass feel like, or what does the tree bark feel like, or what does her skin against his fingertips feel like? So I try to really, without taking 10,000 words to describe that moment, I choose, and it's usually without thinking, I just choose the words that I think are perfect to set that scene in that moment. That's how I do it. I don't do it quickly. My biggest book is over 176,000 words. So they're not as big as Diana Gabaldon or Gabaldon, however you say it. But they are usually, quite big books. So, but my readers love that.
Well, that sounds great. And one of the things I got from that is one of my characters who hasn't got a name at the moment, and I've sort of been thinking about it today, realised I think I have to give him a name because he's got a slightly bigger part than I imagined him. I was just calling him by his rank, and he's a stuffy Englishman, and I decided on the basis of what you just said, I'm going to call him David Periwinkle.
There you go.
That's going to be his name.
What does David Periwinkle look like?
Yeah, well, I think he's probably got a periwinkle. He's he's a small man in every sense. So
okay,
that's what I'm taking it up. No, that's lovely, and there's a balance between telling a story, getting it out there, moving it along, and living in the moment. And obviously, when you're reading a book, you do want to be taken away a little bit and into that moment.
Yes.
But you can't go too far down that line, because then it becomes fluffy and you're not moving things along. And that's, so you've obviously got this balance right, Susan. It's impressive that you're able to do this. And, you talk about you don't do this quickly, but you must. Let's talk about your process a little bit then. So how and when do you write, and how much are you writing?
It depends on if the muse is cooperating or not.
Right.
Last year the year before was actually a little bit difficult in that my husband had a heart attack. He's fine. He's all mended and all healthy. In fact, he came to me a couple months ago and said, "Honey, I just paid off the heart attack. I own that puppy now." But I usually, mornings are better for me to write to write. And I try to spend. Actually, it's not based on time. It's based on word count, because I write in Scrivener. I will not write in anything else. I had too many fiascos with words. So I write in Scrivener, and I love their target notifications. And I can be a little competitive at times. So I'm competing with that. You need to write 1,700 words today in order to make your deadline. And I always try to surpass that. That's always my goal. So I do try to write at least 5 days a week. I usually save Sundays for my husband. But yeah, mornings are usually better for me. But it really depends on the book. For instance, Ian's Rose, I wrote a good majority of that in at St. Francis Hospital. My granddaughter was born very early. She was a micropreemie. She weighed 11 11 and a half ounces.
Wow.
No, 1 pound, 11 and a half ounces.
Okay.
It was only like 12 inches long. I mean, so Emily had a son and she had to, get him to school and stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So every morning after Emily had done her kangaroo time and stuff, I would take my laptop and I would go into that NICU and just sit by that crib and watch that baby. And I wrote most of Ian's Rose in that room. So, and that was generally late morning, early afternoon. So
how's the baby now? By the way, we need to finish that story.
She is feral. She is rotten, and I wouldn't have her any other way. She's absolutely beautiful. She's 2.5 now.
Fantastic.
And she just talks, and she's just ornery and beautiful and smart. She's bilingual because her father, is Mexican and he speaks Spanish. And she is just the most precious little thing.
Good to know. Well, obviously helped that presence you gave her at that time. Inspired. Now, so how many words do you roughly get done a day, or do you not? Do you think?
It depends if I'm on a deadline or not.
Yeah.
If the deadline is looming, I've been known to write as much as 11,000 words in a day. During the wintertime, when the sun's not shining, I tend to be a little more, depressed, a little bit more depressed, I guess is the right word. So sometimes only 2,000 words a day, but I usually get in around 4,000 to 5,000 words a day.
Yeah. And so you're doing, you say your books are quite long. So I was going to say you're doing 5 or 6 books a year, but you're probably not doing that. You're probably doing 3 or 4, are you?
Well, I think I only released 2 what I call real books last year. I did release a couple of satirical novels under the pen name Pinky Haversnatch, and it was my thumbing my nose at Cocky Gate, and then the next one was thumbing my nose at the Book Stuffers. So yeah, I had the Cocky Billionaire, and I had Pregnant by My Boss's Cousin, the Billionaire Chic.
That's the Book Stuffer one.
Yes. Anyway, so but yeah, normally my books are at least 100,000 words long. But some of the books I'm going to release this year are smaller. And one is part of a secret project that I'm working on with some fellow author friends. Ooh. And I can't tell you anything about it, except it's unlike anything I've ever written in my entire life. And I'm so excited about this book. It's
Are you part of the Cecilia Mecca clan? Do you know Cecilia?
I know Cecilia. Yeah. I love her. She is absolutely charming.
Because you write in the same genre, I guess.
Yes. Scottish historical. Yeah.
Although Cecilia's branching out, I think, into other things at the moment. But okay, great. So we've got your motivation. We've got the way that you create the books during the day. Mm-hmm. Your approach to each book in terms of its story. Do you plot these out in advance? Do you sit there and let inspiration flow through your fingertips?
I do plot now. I didn't used to plot. I didn't know. Again, in the beginning, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So now I do plot, and I owe a lot of that to the author Anne Perry. I used to take great pride in saying, "Oh, I don't plot. I just let the words take me wherever they go." Blah 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 blah. Well, Anne Perry, who is just, I love her. I do. I have met her several times at the Indie Scribe Conference in California. I took one of her workshops, and she just totally changed my life. She was talking about that one thing more and how you have to be careful in how you layer that one thing more throughout your story. And plotting will help you do that. And what she meant by that one thing more, when you're writing a story, you don't want a huge info dump, okay? But you do need to give your readers necessary information in order for the story to make sense. But you layer that very finely throughout your story, and you have to always remember that one thing more, and you just dot it through there. That will explain why your hero or heroine or your antagonist is behaving the way they're behaving. And when you do that brilliantly, like she does, you will have several aha moments throughout the book.
I understand this. Are you talking about a sort of what might feel at the time that you're writing a slightly extraneous clarification as to why this person's thinking like that? I think that's such a brilliant point, and it's something that my editor picks up on quite often. Why, what was he thinking when he stormed out? As if she hadn't quite understood it, because you know everything. You're omniscient.
Usually.
Well,
sometimes the
sort of.
muse doesn't tell me until the last damn page.
But it's the Dan Brown thing. Dan Brown, a fantastically successful writer, and people know what's going on because he spells it out on every page. And
yes.
that's a really good point.
Yes, so I do plot. I love Scrivener for that. I love the fact that there are character sheets in Scrivener, so I can keep track of, the correct spelling of the character's name. I've been known to go back and forth throughout
David Periwinkle. I'll have to settle on the spelling.
Yes. The character sheet, just not just the name and the age, but also, what they look like. But I put their motivations inside that character sheet. And I always ask myself with all my main characters, what does this particular character want more than anything else in the world? And then what is the one thing that character is most terrified of? And I don't mean like, oh, they're terrified of spiders. For some characters, it could be dying alone. That's their biggest fear. That's the last thing they want in the world, is to die alone. Or to just be alone and never have a family. Or to have to, let's say, he's very devoted to his king, and the last thing he would ever want would be to go against his king, okay, for any reason. But he might be, sometimes they are forced to do that one thing that they're afraid of, or that one thing that they swear to themselves they would never, ever do. I would never betray a trust. I would never lie. I would never steal. I would never whatever. And what makes it really interesting is when you lay that groundwork and you let your reader know in the beginning, this is the one thing he would never, ever do, and then make him end up doing that, such as betraying a trust. I just think it makes the story far more interesting. So I put all that information into each of the character sheets as I'm writing.
Let's move on to marketing a little bit. So KU, or are you wide?
I know Mark Dawson's a big fan. I think it's fabulous that he's making the money that he's making in Kindle Unlimited. In the beginning of my career, it was called KDP Select, and I was a KDP Select princess. There was nothing these people wouldn't do for me. I had 3 books out, and I was averaging $30,000 a month off of 3 books in KDP Select. Enter Kindle Unlimited 1.0, where you didn't get paid unless the reader read 10% of your book. Within 1 month of launching KU 1.0, I went from, I think it was $38,000 the month before on just 3 books, to $3,400 the month they launched KU 1.0. That is that's a sphincter prolapsing drop in income. So that was my wake-up call. And it wasn't about, that old, everybody says, well, I don't want all my eggs in one basket. Well, it's my damn basket. I will decide where my eggs are. Okay. If I want my eggs in 15 baskets, I'll put them there. If I want them all in one, my eggs, I get to decide. But I did decide to go wide. And I thought I was going to take this huge financial hit. I didn't. I had made more money that year than I had made in previous years. And it just keeps going up and up and up. So not a huge fan of the books, the scammers and stuffers that are in Kindle Unlimited. You go to Amazon's top 100 list. In fact, I was there this morning looking at trying to get some ideas for some fonts for a project. And it was just Kindle Unlimited, all the top 100. They were all, except a couple, Kindle Unlimited books. And that disturbs me, only because the Kindle Unlimited books, we all know, get more weight and visibility and everything else than non-Kindle Unlimited books. And I think there needs to be 2 separate lists, one for Kindle Unlimited and one for for bestsellers. That's just my personal opinion.
Now, I should say the line has been a little bit flaky here and there. We've heard every word you've said, but it's occasionally Dalek-like, but I just mentioned that if people think it's their headphones and they're walking along. but we'll carry on for a couple more minutes if you don't mind, Suzan.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Your marketing strategy then. So obviously you've made your decision to go wide, and what's working for you at the moment? Do you run a mailing list? Are you running Amazon ads, Facebook ads, anything like that? You're shaking your head, you're doing nothing. It's just like when you just uploaded your book in 2011 and it's sold.
I have started doing ads, and I was using Mark's lead builder, the lead
gen ads.
Thank you. And that was doing quite well. And then I realized I was, the book that I was giving away was not free at Amazon. So I stopped that so I could make it free to Amazon. And then I never started it again. I'm so bad. But I do have a person who is taking care of my advertising for me right now, because I am under such a flippin' tight deadline. It's like a deadline from hell. If I don't get finished, they're going to kill me. When you work with a group of authors. So anyway, so I do have someone that's taking care of that for me right now. And that is only temporary simply because I'm too busy with the writing process.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
I have done the SPF formula. That was one, I learned so much off of just the first few videos. It's like, I recently took Sky Warren. She's like famous in the romance field, and she's a member of RWA. Anyway, I recently did her seminar on marketing. It's like, Mark Dawson taught me how to do it, all the technical stuff, how to target your audience, how to do a lookalike audience, all that stuff. But Sky is teaching me how to take that information and make it work for me. So it's going to be, as soon as I finish this book, please God, let it be by Sunday. Then I will be able to take the advertising back into my own lap and put those things together.
So Sky teaches more sort of romance specific.
I don't think it's romance. No, it's not romance specific. I think you could take anything that she's doing and I think, anything that she's doing and would work for any genre. I don't think it's genre specific. In fact, I know it's not. No, it's not genre specific.
Okay. All right. Well, let's bring it back round in that nice circular fashion we're supposed to do with stories to the writing and from where you are and what you've learned. Telling the rest of us who are trying to get going how to do it. We had great tips from you at the beginning. What about the general kind of approach to this as a career?
I tell everybody, you have to gird your loins every single day, sometimes hour by hour. There are going to be a lot of outside forces that will try to put a kink in your career. It could be a spouse, it could be family, it could be kids, it could be fate, just things coming in. It could be people who do not necessarily have your best interests at heart, like vanity presses, that type of thing. But you can't really do anything until you've written the book. I can't tell you the number of emails I get, the number of Facebook private messages I get that always start with, I'm thinking about writing a book. How do I market it? And I tell them, I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to market something when you don't have a book. You can't market blank pages. You can't edit blank pages. You can't do anything with blank pages. So I tell them, write the book first and then come back to me. So my other piece of advice would be, and I see this a lot, and part of it's our own fault as indie authors. When the indie explosion happened, we were so eager to share our information, to share our success, and this is what I did, and that's why I was successful. And then people would say, well, I want to write a book. And we would tell them, go ahead, write the book. It's great, that type of thing. But I've seen it to where people thought, they saw the rest of us, being successful and making all this money, that they thought they could put a book together that was never edited, never final proofed. The cover was horrendous, whatever. Put a $9.99 ebook price tag on it, publish it, and they thought that they could just sit back and rake in the money. It does not work that way. So my biggest piece of advice is after you self-publish that first book, you are going to want to, and we all do it, you're going to be glued to the stats for those first few days. And they are probably not going to be what you would like them to be, and that's okay. What you need to do is write the next book, and write the next book after that, and write the next book after that. My story, how I got started, that is such an anomaly. That is a Cinderella story. Those don't happen very often, at least not in today's day and age. So you just have to keep writing. And just because a marketing technique that you're using today does not work, does not mean it's not going to work tomorrow or next week or next month. Do not give up. Be very thoughtful in your process. But the first thing you got to do is write the book. I tell people, write with fervor, write with zeal, write with passion, write from your heart. But for God's sakes, get an editor.
And write with lusty thrusting.
Yes. But your goal, which with each and every single book that you write, your goal should always be that this current book is better than the last book. So do not let anybody tell you, I don't care who you are, your writing can always improve. There's always something you could do to make, I don't care if you've got one book out or 300. There's always something you can do to make the current work in progress better than the last book you published.
Yeah, that's so true.
And that should always be your goal.
Absolutely. And I'm certain that the greatest writers the world has ever given us went to their grave wishing they were better writers.
Oh, God, I do it all the time. It's like, oh, man, I wish I could write like this person, or I wish I could write like that person. Or, and usually I'm comparing myself to something contemporary or something paranormal. Oh, for instance, recently, Genevieve Jack. Oh, my stars. She's like one of my dearest, dearest, dearest friends. And she has written this new book. It's called The Dragon of New Orleans. I don't read paranormal romance. I just don't. But I said, yeah, I'll read it. I'll give it, I'll try it. And, oh, my stars. I'm telling you what, from the absolute first sentence of the first page, you are hooked. This has got to be, it just has to be one of the most brilliantly, beautifully written novels that I have had the pleasure of reading in forever. And I can't wait. It'll be live in a few weeks. But I mean, if I could write some of my historical romances the way she wrote this paranormal, I would be like,
well, writing's writing, regardless of genre, isn't it? And that's great to be inspired that much by one of your friends. And hopefully, Suzan, people have been inspired listening to you as well today. So
I hope so.
It's been great. Thank you. Congratulations again on your success. That's fantastic.
Well,
We're intrigued by the secret project, so we'll keep an eye on
Oh, yes. We should be making an announcement in March or April.
Okay, good.
It's going to be epic. That's all that. It's just going to be epic. It's epic, epic, epic.
Well, that could be about the time this podcast goes out, so people can get onto Amazon and have a look, see what it's all
now,
about.
Am I allowed to tell anybody I did this podcast, or is this top secret because you don't know if you're going to air it or not, or what?
It'll air. It's definitely going to air, and you can tell everybody. And I'll give you a date as soon as we've scheduled it as to when it's actually going out.
You are so sweet.
Thank you so much for joining us, Suzan.
Thank you for having me, and I've really enjoyed talking to you.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There you go. Now, I was thinking, Mark, that the kind of escapism aspect of this is it's very obvious with romance, but it's actually the heart of every novel, right? The reason people read is that same thing. It works in your novels. It works in the novel I'm attempting to write.
It does if it's done properly, yes. And also it's not something that's dependent upon novels or books. It's, people go to see the new Avengers movie. That's what they want. They want to get away from
There's the new Avengers movie? I love the new Avengers.
There is not the new Avengers. There's a new Avengers. Oh, anyway, and all Game of Thrones, of course, which I've seen twice now, which is extremely good. And no spoilers on this podcast, obviously, but that's why people, watch those things. They want to get away from their lives for whatever reason. It might be that their lives are a bit dull. Perhaps they've got problems. or perhaps they haven't got problems and they just want to lose themselves in something completely different for a while. So, yeah, my books, they want to read about an alcoholic spy who's trying to redeem the mistakes that he's made in the past. Susan's books, they want to follow couples as they find each other over the course of the pages. In your book, hang on, let me think about this. Yes, there's a big crash. Apparently, I've been led to believe, and then there's a conspiracy behind it. So that's people are going to be looking for that kind of experience when they finally, at some point in the 2020s, get around to reading your book. So yes, that is why people consume entertainment. It is to get out of themselves for a bit.
And the craft side of it is managing that expectation, making a lot of your book the anticipation ahead of things happening, which is the escapist bit, the reason for turning the page and wanting to be there and enjoying that bit, rather than simply describing a scene that might be a beautiful scene. So that's what I'm learning in my trade. It's the stuff I think comes naturally to you by this stage. Is it coming naturally to you with Beatrix now?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I had a really good moment on the train yesterday. There was going to be the ending was going to be one way, which I was really pleased about. I came up with this great idea with the ending, and then I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if this happened? And so there's a bluff and then a double bluff, so the audience will be slightly surprised, I think, at the end of it.
Is it all very Red Sparrow at the end?
No, not particularly, but there is Beatrix is pretty. She's a cool character. She's fun to write, and there's a pretty interesting little switch that people won't see coming at the end that I'm quite pleased with. So yes,
good. Okay, that's it. A final reminder that we have a webinar on Scrivener on Wednesday night, a live webinar with Gwen Hernandez, who wrote Scrivener for Dummies. We're delighted to have her along as a guest lecturer at the SPF University. If you are enrolled in any of our courses, or you are a Patreon supporter, if you've gone to patreon.com/self-publishing show, and you can do that straight away. You can do that straight away now, and you will be eligible to join us in that webinar on Wednesday night. You also get, of course, access to all the webinars that have taken place in the SPFU. Good. Marcus, thank you very much indeed. I know that I've held you up from getting on with your what is an extended holiday weekend for us here in the UK. Currently raining, but I'm sure we'll make the most of it one way and another. And so you can crack on now.
Thank you very much. I've got half an hour before I go pick my daughter up, so I'll rush back to my other desk.
Good. Well, it just leaves me to say it's a good night from me.
And a good night from him.
Good night.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.